Today, we're going to explore what might just be the very first documented journey into the human mind. I'm talking about a voyage into a realm that was believed to be totally separate from our physical reality. This is the incredible story of Dr. Heinz Gruber and his radical and, well, potentially dangerous attempt to actually map the subconscious.
But before he even began, this pioneer of the mind had this moment of doubt. This is a question he actually scribbled in his own notes, and it really sets the stage for everything that follows. See, this wasn't just some sterile scientific experiment. This was a high-stakes journey from the absolute get-go.
So, who was this guy, Dr. Gruber, and what was he trying to do exactly? Well, let's get right to the core of his life's work, creating a real, verifiable science of the self.
Dr. Heinz Gruber was a scientist, and he was, you could say, obsessed with one single mission. After years and years of frustrating setbacks, he was finally sure that he'd overcome the last hurdles. He truly believed he was on the verge of a breakthrough, not just for him, but one that could create an entirely new branch of science.
And that science he called VSM. Now, the core idea here was, it was revolutionary. VSM treated the subconscious not as, a jumble of abstract thoughts, but as a real, actual navigatable world. Gruber's goal was to literally separate his consciousness from his body and become an explorer in that inner landscape.
So, the big question is, how did he plan to do it? And that brings us to the protocol itself, the really fascinating step-by-step procedure he designed to enter his very own mind.
Okay, so the process had 3 absolutely critical stages. First up, sensory separation. This meant using technology to basically detach his mind from his physical senses. Second, what he called the subconscious push, using more stimuli to get him right to the very edge of that inner world. And then, the final step, the chemical catalyst, an intravenous hallucinogenic compound, or IHC. This was his prized discovery, this special compound designed to give that final push into a totally new state of awareness.
And it worked. I mean, within minutes, Heinz Gruber slipped past the threshold. So let's talk about his first moments in that bizarre new reality.
Just try to imagine it. Suddenly, everything you know is just gone. First, your sight, complete blackness.
Then, absolute total silence. No background noise, no hum of a machine, nothing.
And maybe the weirdest part of all, no physical sensation. The feeling of the chair you're in, the air on your skin, all of it just vanished.
Gruber's own notes really capture this surreal state perfectly. He was awake, he was aware, but he was utterly disconnected from the physical world. He had become just a single point of consciousness, floating in an endless, empty void. But then came the turning point. In all that blackness, he had this profound insight. He wasn't just an observer floating in the empty space, he was the space. The moment he realized he owned this reality, he found out he could move within it just by willing it to happen.
So he started to explore, spinning and moving through this void. But just as he was getting used to this incredible new freedom, everything changed all over again. The void was about to get filled.
The second dose of the IHA kicks in, and suddenly the darkness is shattered. A flicker of light appears and just shoots away. Instinctively, he willed himself towards it, trying to catch it, but he just found more emptiness.
Another bolt of light appears, and again he tries to chase it down, but it's just too fast. And this, right here, was a fundamental problem. How do you react and catch something in a universe where the rules of physics, things like speed and reaction time, they don't apply?
This is where he had to completely shift his thinking. He stopped trying to react in a physical way. Instead of chasing, he started observing. He just watched the bolts of light, analyzed them, noted their characteristics, where they started, their shapes. He switched from being a participant back to being a scientist.
So armed with this new understanding, he tried this radical new tactic. He started jumping his awareness instantly between different points in the void, trying to guess where a light source would farm. And then it happened.
He didn't just see the light. His new tactic worked so perfectly that his entire reality became the light. He was inside of it, moving with it. And as his own notes put it, this was a moment of pure, unbridled triumph and discovery.
And inside this dragon of light, sensation came back. But it wasn't physical. It was emotional. It was profound. He describes these feelings of warmth, of absolute safety, and this strange, powerful feeling of being home.
But while he was off on this incredible adventure, back in the lab, the clock on the wall was telling a very, very different story. And this brings us to probably the most startling scientific paradox of the entire session.
Okay, so to really get what happened next, we have to understand two different kinds of time. On the one hand, you've got objective time. That's the linear, measurable seconds and minutes being ticked off by the lab equipment. But on the other hand, you have subjective experience, how time actually felt to Gruber's consciousness, which was fluid, elastic, and apparently almost endless.
So how long did this whole incredible journey take? Navigating the void, learning a new way to move, chasing and finally catching a dragon of light. How long did it all last? According to the recording equipment, just 4 minutes.
That's right, 4 minutes. To Gruber, that number was it was impossible. The sheer amount of stuff he experienced, the discovery, the struggle, the triumph, it felt like it must have been hours, maybe even longer. He had lived an entire epic adventure inside his own mind.
And this leaves us with the central, mind-bending question of Gruber's experiment. The huge difference between objective and subjective time wasn't just a fun fact. It was a fundamental discovery. It suggests our inner worlds might operate on a completely different timescale. I mean, if a mind can live a whole adventure in just 4 minutes, what does that really say about the limits of human experience? And maybe more importantly, what else might be waiting for us, just beneath the surface of our own awareness?